Today on Leading Women, Senator Loren Legarda has lived many lives. She was a commercial model, an award-winning broadcast journalist, and now a three-term senator. Somewhere along the way, she discovered her true calling, to be a steward of the environment, and she has used her position as a legislator to pass laws that prevent pollution, clean up the rivers, and reduce disaster risks. She's a warrior for climate change adaptation and an advocate of indigenous fabrics, a very fashionable one at that.
Senator Loren Legarda, welcome to Leading Women.
Yes, thank you. Happy to be here with you, Angel. And I'm happy to welcome you here in the National Museum. And I wish that your viewers would come here, and that's the Hibla ng Lahing Filipino, which is the first and only textile gallery in the Philippines.
Senator, have you always been this enthusiastic and passionate of the textiles of the indigenous people?
Oh yes, ever since I can remember, since I was a child, I've always had indigenous weaves. My late mother also collected, she had a camphor chest, baul ng tela. And I loved opening it and looking at all her telas. Yeah, at that time, it was probably not the weaves of the indigenous peoples, but from her travels, no? Meron siyang Thai silk, meron siyang cotton from where, etc. But I don't know, I always had this camphor chest in front of her bed, in the master's bedroom in our home in Malabon. I would open it and look at all the cloth. Maybe that's where I got my passion for textiles. And then later on, when I became a young journalist like you, and my television show would bring me all over the country, I would see how these women, weavers, young and old, would do their weaving through hand looms that you see here and backstrap looms. And they would use cotton, banana, abaca. Some would use polyester because of the lack of materials. So I always had this interest in the creativity of our loom weavers.
Loren Legarda started modeling at the age of 15, appearing as one of the first close-up girls in 1975. A favorite of ad agencies and clients, she endorsed many beauty products on television, but she wanted to do so much more with the medium.
You were a journalist. Please take us back to that time. What was life like? How would you manage your time?
So I did commercials, but my first love was television, and I wanted to become a journalist. And so my late grandfather was a journalist. He was editor-in-chief of the pre-martial law Manila Times. Lolo Pepe, Jose P. Bautista, those in the journalism field would know him as one of the pillars of Philippine journalism. I grew up with him because we lived in a compound in Malabon, and he taught me, he just told us stories about being in the newsroom. He said that as a journalist, it's always important to have the nose for news, the eye for detail, and the ear for rumor. So I grew up in that environment. And so I became a journalist at 21 years old, and I chose television. I eventually became an executive producer. I was writing stories. I was doing interviews like yourself. I was hosting events. I would be sent in my early 20s to cover presidential coverages. I did the first radio presidential coverage of President Aquino, Cory, in 1986 with Cheche Lazaro and Noli de Castro in Indonesia. We did that for radio because there was no ABS-CBN television yet. And in 86, after EDSA, had the first news program, and that was The World Tonight, which I did with Angelo Castro.
Yes.
And then the late Angelo was a good friend. And we had Pep Talk, which was the first magazine program after martial law in the post-EDSA era. And then I did that for quite a while until I eventually ran for the Senate in 1998 and bid television goodbye.
How did you feel about that decision?
It wasn't easy. I had not guilt pangs, but pains, or how do you call it? I had 6 months of 1 year of sometimes regretting leaving TV. When I would watch TV and the news, I said, I should have been there. I want to go back to TV and not in the Senate. Those are probably birth pains of being thrust in politics and leaving a career. So I was at the top of my career when I left it to be a senator. But then again, I have no regrets now. Having been there for more than almost 20 years. In my 3 terms, I ran twice and won number 1 2 times. On my 3rd time, I won number 2. Not bad at all. And I was able, what's more important than topping the Senate race is I'm able, Angel, to see the problems of the country as a documentarist and as a journalist, and I'm able to translate these problems into actual solutions through legislation. I was always a dreamer. I was always I had an ideal world in my mind, my utopia.
And this ideal world, you're slowly envisioning this world for the Philippines, a better Philippines, a better country,
Yes.
A cleaner Philippines.
Yes. Healthier, more sustainable. Development is good, but development without conscience is not good. And that's not the way to go. I believe that it's about time that we rethink and redefine what development actually means. Does it mean development at all cost? Does it mean development where our rivers will be polluted? Does it mean development where the indigenous peoples and the rural folks are on the margins of society? Does it mean development where air quality is way beyond what is acceptable for the commuters who ride our public transport every day? Is it development at the cost of our mountains and forests being degraded and of our mangrove areas being denuded? Is it development at the cost of the health of our women and children? No. The kind of development I foresee for our country is a socially inclusive, equitable development that can allow man and nature to coexist without utilizing or exploiting our very finite resources because we don't own it. We're stewards of the earth. We're stewards of nature. We're here not to use it for our own sake, but to just care for it and use it in a way that will not wipe it out from the earth, because we have to bequeath it to the next generation.
The senator is often asked to give talks about climate change, and she can argue passionately about everything, from extreme weather events to overfishing to planting rice. But Loren Legarda does so in a way that can be understood by everyone.
Yes. So what I try to do is I try to bring it down to the barangay level so that people will understand its importance. And after Yolanda, after Haiyan, after Ondoy in 2009, after Pablo, after Sendong, after Typhoon Frank, after all these, people already know how climate change can destroy, can set us back in our development, how climate change must be addressed. And so they see that segregation of waste is important. They see that recycling is important. They see that preparedness is important. They see that moving to evacuation centers, if you live in a vulnerable or hazard area, and moving early enough to an evacuation center can actually save your life. So these are little things which should be done on a day-to-day basis. I mean, understanding climate change and doing all the adaptation measures is like brushing your teeth every day. It's not for scientists or for legislators or for lawmakers or for the leaders of the world to discuss it in COP21 in Paris. The issue of climate is something we should live, breathe, and do every day because it's an everyday gut issue. I have many projects in different parts of the country. First, the women weavers. That's my project because we help the schools of living tradition, whether they are arts and crafts, whether they are beadwork, whether they're weavers, because these are what we call vulnerable rural livelihoods that must be promoted, because if we don't, they will lose their livelihood. That's part of the climate agenda. In Barangay Nyogan in Tagaytay, in Barangay Sikat in Alfonso, Cavite, are just examples in Barangay Potrero in Malabon. These are just examples of barangays which used to have dump sites, which used to have things thrown in their streets. Now, they have material recovery facilities. They have gulayan, free food for everyone because they plant on available lot and they segregate garbage at waste, recycle, and compost.
Last year, the Philippines made a remarkable comeback at the Venice Biennale after a long absence. Bringing the work and ideas of Filipino artists to this world platform was a coup that was orchestrated by Senator Loren Legarda herself.
50 years, the Philippines has been on hiatus from the Biennale, and you brought it back.
Yes.
You made effort, you made blood, sweat, and tears, went
Yes.
into
2
bringing
years
it back.
of work. Yes. How could 100 million people not be represented in the Venice Biennale when even a country like Maldives is represented there with only 1 million people? And I thought to myself, I should do everything to be able to bring the Philippines back to the Venice Biennale. And we have a pavilion, a national pavilion we're so proud of, curated by Dr. Patrick Flores of the University of the Philippines, who also heads the Vargas Museum, and represented by Manny Mantalibano. He is a intermedia artist from Negros. In his multi-channel video. And we have another great artist in the person of Jose Tense Ruiz, who had this monumental, massive installation, which he calls the Shoal. And we have the newly restored 1952 film Genghis Khan of Botong Francisco and Manuel Conde, who eventually became national artists. And you might be wondering why, and your viewers might be wondering, what is she talking about? A 1952 Genghis Khan film, an installation made out of velvet and metal and wood called a shoal, and a multi-channel video of the West Philippine Sea. What's the connection? Because this is contemporary art, nothing is really explicitly explained. In contemporary art, you think what you want to think. It's deep, and you read it, and let it evoke whatever comes out from your imagination and your thoughts. And Tie a String Around the World of Dr. Patrick Flores is really a poetic and political reflection of events happening in the world, including the West Philippine Sea issue. But it is not simply the West Philippine Sea, it goes beyond that into a broader perspective. It has religious underpinnings as well, and it is so creatively, brilliantly done. And the good news is, for those, of course, who cannot go to Venice in Italy, it will be brought back to the Philippines by the last quarter of 2016. I have another secret which you should go to. You should visit Bangaan.
Where exactly is Bangaan?
Bangaan is a barangay in Banawe in Ifugao. It is one of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. I adopted that village.
What does it mean to adopt a village, Senator?
It's a traditional Ifugao village that almost forgot its roots because they preferred concrete houses or GI sheets. And I, through interventions for the past 3-4 years, said, no, you must do this. We were able to provide some little resources, funding, and they insisted on their GI sheets. I said, no, no, no. Now I think they're able to do it the traditional way, and it will be back to a traditional Ifugao village.
How nice. This is how you care, not only for the environment, but for everyone.
Yes. My whole advocacy all my life, from the time I was a child to now in my third term in the Senate, it's actually stated in 2 words. I care. It's as simple as caring. If you don't segregate your waste at source, recycle and compost, it will just go out to the dump site. Then you don't care. If you don't perpetuate living traditions which are dying or dead, and let the old manangs just die without communicating and teaching the younger ones how to do their weaves, then you don't care. If you don't improve the air quality, then you don't care. I'm not like that. I care.
Recently, Senator Loren Legarda had to give up her post as chair of the Committee on the Environment to take on the Committee on Finance. But her concern for the environment is not put to hold. In fact, it is amplified when considering national budgets.
How did you feel about this change? How do you now care for this new
Wow,
committee that you have?
it's even a bigger responsibility, because it's not just the Environment Committee at handle on climate change, but the whole 3 trillion budget is thrust before us, and we must analyze it and see how they are spending the funds. And there must be mainstreaming of climate and disaster risk. What do I mean? When you look at the budget for roads, and you look at the budget for infrastructure, when you look at the budget for irrigation, and you look at the budget for school buildings, it must be attuned to the changes in climate. It must be attuned to extreme weather events. What provision have you done for El Nino? What are you doing for this? So all of that must be taken into consideration. I read this, I don't know if it was a tweet or Facebook. It was Patrick Flores who sent it to us after my TEDx appearance in UP on the Venice Biennale. Someone put there that her passion is contagious. Yeah, I want it to be a contagion. I want my climate consciousness to be contagious. I want my advocacy for disaster risk reduction to infect you. I want my passion for culture and heritage to be contagious. Yeah.
Has this also extended to your sons? You
Oh,
have
yes.
2 sons.
Yes. Oh, they're my teachers.
Oh.
They're better than me. My son, my elder son who lives abroad, knows art and culture, and I am immersed and learned in contemporary art because of my son. He was the one who taught me maybe 8 years ago about contemporary art, because I knew the modernists, I knew the traditional art, I knew indigenous art, but I did not know about contemporary art in the world. He was the one who lectured me, made me read, and brought me to contemporary art spaces. My second son is walking his talk, and he tells me, "Mommy, you create laws. You speak in the United Nations." He said, "Me, I walk my talk, and I create megawatts upon megawatts of electricity through solar power plants," and he actually does. If I may say so as a proud mother myself, I think he's the only one in the world who, at 21 years old, has built more than 12 megawatts of solar power.
The self-professed naturalist surrounds herself with like-minded people who are fighting for causes in their own fields of art, culture, and the environment. Nature, old houses, and indigenous cuisine are just some of the places where she finds joy.
I know that you also like talking. I remember when we followed you to one of your hearings, so the Senate, and you were very light with everybody.
Yes,
Very
baliw.
infectious. Baliw ba, sir?
No, I'm just like that. I'm just like that. Yeah, sometimes they're shocked. I enter the office and I say, "What is this?" I point to a table. "What is this?" They're just shocked. "Explain to me, what is this table?" They're shocked. "It is a recycled table from this and that," and all of that. Yeah. Then I have my team or friends who I consider soulmates. I have my environmental soulmates. I have my art and culture soulmates. They are professionals in their own fields, either international lawyers, environmental lawyers, or professional artists who are well known internationally, those who work with me, those who don't work with me, bigger than me, better than me.
So when you get together, do you still talk about work, or do you talk about watching a movie? Do you talk about the latest restaurant? Do you talk about...
We talk about saving the world.
Superhero senators, still saving the world.
That's a good theme. Maybe I'll call my group superheroes in our mind, that all exists in our mind. So most of them actually are academe, but who also exercise their professions internationally or in the Philippines. And we have our feet on the ground. Kami mga simpleng tao, I do not go to hotels. I do not eat in fancy restaurants.
It's a conscious effort, Senator.
No, it's just not me.
So, a good mix of men and women, and these are close to your heart, these are people you confide in.
Yes.
But in the Senate, it's a different arena.
It's a boxing arena.
It's a boxing arena.
Yes, I don't box with them.
You don't box.
Yes, no, they're all my friends. They're all my friends. My colleagues I consider my friends. Some of them I've been with them for so long, for 3 terms. And when I deliver a privileged speech, I say, this is my speech, would you want to ask me questions? And then some of them ask, what questions can I ask? Then I said, you can ask this. And then they do. And then eventually, it's a hearty conversation.
No challenges between dealing with male senators and female senators?
There are always challenges every day. And there will be many questions, but who says that life has to be easy? There's always a challenge.
What else challenges you, Senator? Is seeking a higher position in the government?
It does not excite me. I think I have a higher calling, and that higher calling is not higher office. Higher calling does not necessarily translate to higher public office. The higher calling could be anything from reforesting our forests to propagating our schools of living tradition or influencing countries to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. I think that's equally important or even perhaps more relevant than running for higher office.
You speak of importance, during the sauna, every year that there's a sauna or every time that there's a sauna, people are conscious about what you wear.
I don't use designer outfits.
Yes.
And last time I wore an antique piña clothing from my late mother that was done by the late Marina Antonio 30-40 years ago. And the year before that, I wore a mandaya outfit from the people of Barangay or Sitio Sangab in Caraga town in Davao Oriental, where their tourism officer, who was a mandaya, came over to dress me up. There was another time long ago where I wore a traditional Tiboli outfit from the Tibolis of Lake Cebu.
So this is also your way of expressing the weaving.
Yes.
And our culture.
Because
and who
sauna,
you are.
they see you, so what better way? I wear costumes as a way of life.
Senator Loren Legarda walks the talk. The climate engager does not just pass laws and give lectures. She lives and breathes her beliefs every day, whether by growing her own vegetables or adopting an entire village. She cares deeply about traditional crafts and weaving, and literally wears her heart on her sleeve. This is probably what a modern-day hero looks like.